Welcome back to the Dallas Central Games Pioneer 2K RCQ. I'm Chase and joined by Cameron again. We're about to start with semifinal matchup.
A riveting one here. It was only a matter of time until we had a black-red mirror. So two players playing black-red here. One of them is Dillon that we saw in an earlier round when he played a very good match versus the blue-A player that also made top 8. And then Mike Ingram is on the right, also with a black-red list.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because even though it's a black-red mirror, these lists have some divergences between what they're playing. We mentioned earlier that Dillon's only playing the 2 copies of Trespasser. This is another one of the matches for Trespasser. Can be potentially quite strong. Obviously, weak to Liliana, but strong against the other removal spells. And 2 Crocs also seems like part of the matchup I want to be on.
Absolutely, yeah. We pointed to extra 4 drops in Mike's list, but I do like just making sure that I'm gonna escape Crocs pretty soon into the game.
I do like being on the play though, especially when I'm playing Thoughtseize.
Yes,
and, start things off by going to 16 as Mike's gonna Thoughtseize Dillon. Sees Blood Type Harvester, Croxa, and I believe 4 lands. I believe that's a pathway, 2 dens, and a Blood Crypt.
I think so.
What do you like to take here? Obviously, it depends on as a lot of things are going to depend on. Complete context of hands is going to be really important for a lot of these decisions.
Absolutely. And it just feels silly to take a Croxa, and also feels a little silly to be taking Blood Type Harvester when there's another one, but it's the only one you're actually trading a card with.
Yeah, so. I think the only defense for taking Croxa is if you have a Trespasser in your hand, and you can definitely trespass it. It wouldn't have ended up not working out if that was your plan, because Thoughtseize off the top is gonna balance the life tittles in this game. And we see Blood Type Harvester, second land, I believe another, also a down to the bugbear, Bone Crusher Giant, Sheldred. I believe we're trying to choose between Bone Crusher and Sheldred.
I think so.
And I believe I would take the Sheldred.
Okay.
Because I think you don't have good answers to it in the matchup.
And instant speed looks like Dillon agrees.
And I don't think this matchup is going to get decided before Michael finds his land.
Yes. Thank you.
Blood Type Harvester coming into play, going to generate a blood token. That's the turn back.
I like it.
I do like it. I at least can tell very clearly what it's supposed to be. That's all that really matters. And we're going to see running it back. I believe you just want to get your Harvester into play. It's kind of a little sad that it's going to line up into the Bone Crusher Stomp, but I don't think you're going to be able to get the Bone Crusher out of the way before you get your blood, like before you have to play your Blood Type Harvester.
Alternatively, Mike does only have 3 cards in his hand, so you could just say it's okay that you're taking 3 damage next turn and
just play your Croxa.
Yeah,
I guess it's also very likely Croxa is going to trade for a spell here, because even if Michael has a land, I don't think you're going to want to discard it to Croxa here, as you need it to get to your Bone Crusher Giant turn, and is what I would prefer to have, given that I have a blood token in play. So I could see playing Croxa being correct. Again, very punished if your opponent draws a Graveyard Trespasser off the top is the one risk. But I think that's going to be hard to get to 6 mana and do a play plus escape turn in this matchup, just because of the tensions involved. But again, so far, just literally the same turn taken by both players. Who would have thunk it? Looks like we do have a land that's going to get put into play here. I think we're thinking about whether we want to play it first or not. I assume we're just supposed to resolve our stomp, make sure we get our 2 for 1.
Looks like it.
More important than getting on the board here. These matchups can be incredibly value oriented.
Yep. Almost missed the attack, but
almost missed the attack. Putting Dillon down to 13. Player pathway land. Let's see what color that's on. I believe you want it on the black side because you have a den in your hand. And then this looks like a Fable.
I think so.
Of the Mirror Breaker.
Yep.
Very good here. It's another way to use the Croxa card. You can just put it directly into your graveyard on the turn you're going to escape it here.
We discussed how like this deck very much utilizes the power of the black interaction spells, but Fable is another card that just is so much cardboard in one card when you're playing these very value-oriented grindy games that I'm not sure whether the black red deck would be as successful without a card like that.
And it looks like Michael drawing another Bone Crusher Giant. He's committed to this aggressive plan. He's going to kill the token. He's going to attack again, putting Dillon down to 10. Let's do this Fable trigger on the stack. I believe we're going to pitch the Den and the Croxa. Because we have an Urborg to play untapped. Draw our 2 cards. 1 card short of escaping Croxa this turn.
True.
Which would be pretty hard to meet. I don't think, other than Liliana of the Veil, there's a card that you can draw that cleanly answers it this turn.
Another Fable.
I mean, it's good the first time. It's going to be good this time too. We might also see this Urborg get held in hand. I guess he has second land, so he's going to play this blood.
Got it. Yep.
But potentially, if I only have 1 lander, I might not play it as option to discard. He might hold both of them and try to draw 2 spells. It's a little less likely with the shoulder to be
right.
Fatal Push as the last unknown card for Michael Ingram here, cleaning up the Goblin token, and he's got a chance. He's going to connect for another 3 here. He's going to get a Bone Crusher into play. Dillon's down to 7, and I could see playing Blood Tithe Harvester to get another blood token to represent killing a Croxa if you have another Blood Tithe Harvester, if you draw like another Stomp. He's going to commit to not rummaging by putting his Blightside Pathway into play. I think you wanted. I have no clue which side you're supposed to play it on. I think black's probably fine.
Yeah.
Anyway, Reflection's going to flip over. We're going to get some more rummaging going on. Liliana's looking a little poor.
Yeah.
I decided if you're discarding the Urborg too. Let's discard just the Urborg. Keep the Liliana.
Draws a Haunted Ridge.
Haunted Ridge. So we can play Shoulder plus Rummage. If we play our land, we play Liliana plus Rummage. If we don't play our land, I think you need to get the Shouldered into play. I think you need to start to stabilize your life total.
Yep.
And I think that means you're going to hold this Liliana. If it looks good, you'll keep it. Otherwise, it's going to get rummaged away for a new card. End of turn here. But the board's starting to get pretty stable here. I mean, I think if Michael draws another Blood Harvester, it's going to look pretty good for him. If he doesn't, he's going to be in a tough spot. Going down to 14 on his draw step from the shoulder trigger. And it's not just that his life total is going to start going down. It's the life that Dillon's going to start to gain here.
Yes.
Michael's invested a lot of resources into pressuring Dillon's life total. And if that ends up amounting to not coming to a lethal attack,
the game gets really hard.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Also, this Croxa is going to come back next turn too.
Yep.
I think the probably not recoverable.
And I don't think he drew an answer to the Shieldred off the top, or
I think he drew a land, which is like even worse because I think he just has to rummage it because.
Got it.
But the thing is, if he rummages it, I don't know what he can draw because I think like what do you want to draw here? You want to draw like 14 fatal pushes?
Like just Dreadbore?
Yeah, just Dreadbore. A fatal push is fine because it kills the shoulder, give revolt.
Sure.
The problem is if you rummage the blood token, then Blood Harvester isn't a live draw to kill Shieldred because you don't have -6/-6 on the activation. Also, if you rummage a blood token on Shieldred in play, it decreases your life total, which speeds up the clock.
True.
It's an old adage that, mid-range players, when they get these spots where there's not a lot of choices and they're taking a long time, it's not good.
Yes.
It means that they have choices that they don't like, and they're going to have to make one of them. See, Reflection getting killed, shocking in a Blood Crypt, down to 12, to fire up Den of the Bugbear to make an attack, because you can't block the token either. Still on the life total pressure play. I mean, it has to be the best line. I don't think you want to rummage. I don't think it's enough to play Bone Crusher Giant. So in for 4.
Yep, I think this is a really smart line here.
I think you're just supposed to block the debt. I think
Okay.
I think that's enough life from Shieldred. You'll take
Yep.
1 in combat going to 6. You can even rummage your Liliana away if you want to
Mhm.
gain another 2 life.
Mhm.
And then your 2/2 will flip over. That'll line up against the Blood Tithe Harvester. You're going to have a 1/1 token and some Bone Crushers coming down, but you're going to have a Croxa coming back into play.
Yep.
So I think you're just supposed to block the den, take that trade, and
Mhm.
that's enough.
Yep. You also have the Fable flipping over to be a 2/2 as another blocker for later.
We have an actual Goblin token. Let's go. Fortunately, it's a Scars of Mirrodin Goblin token, which has not been Phyrexianified, even though thematically he should be. It's okay. But still just thinking through our blocks, thinking through if we want to rummage before we block. My inclination is that the best line is block den and then rummage your Liliana way to gain 2 life.
I like that block.
Just because the Croxa is going to be like at that point, you're also getting close to a second Croxa escape. So even if your opponent finds a removal spell for Croxa, you can just put him back into play.
Yep.
But obviously, these decisions are all very hard. It's very easy for us sitting back here with perfect information, not in the stressful situation to figure that out, and got to think through the lines. And he does make the block, which I respect. He's going to take 1 going to 6, and then post combat, this Blood Tithe Harvester is going to kill the Sheldred. Didn't rummage in response. He wants the Liliana. Seems like the only part of our plan that we disagree on. I guess Liliana isn't out to an opponent's Sheldred, but I don't even think you're scared of an opponent's Sheldred because Croxa is just such a monster. But so we're gonna leave not creatures in our graveyard because we don't want our opponent to draw a Trespasser and gain life or join us,
smart.
Which makes sense.
Yep.
We're gonna get a Croxa trigger. Our opponent has no cards, so they're going to 12. And looks like Blood Tithe Harvester was the pickup for turn, so we're just gonna hold those cards and pass it back. And what are we thinking of draws? I think it's you have to draw Sheldred this turn into like your own Croxa for lethal setup. So starting on a rummage is not looking pretty great.
Yeah. Because like you said, all the resources got invested into closing the game, and now there's just no resources left to continue to play the game now that it couldn't get closed out.
Shatter's Claw Smashing getting played tapped. Bone Crusher Giant coming into play. And we're going to pass it back. And I think that after this chump block with the Goblin token, this is where the Liliana is going to finally pay off. It's going to close the door on any chance of Michael Ingram forming a plan to aggress his opponent. But we'll see. I can't imagine not attacking with Croxa here. But just wants to make sure he's making the right attack here, whether he wants to try to play his Blood Tithe Harvester and copy it first, or if there's a lethal line. I think that's the other thing to puzzle out, is if your opponent's actually dead this turn. Which I don't think he is.
Don't think so.
Just gonna go to combat, attack with Croxa, trigger. Just gonna put Michael Ingram down to 6. Goblin is gonna get in the way.
It's a nice image. I don't even know if Croxa would like notice the little goblin that he's stomping
Just
on.
devouring.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Sucked into the void.
Such a better art than Uro 2. Those of you who are not familiar with me, I'm a noted Uro hater. But yeah. Here's the Liliana. There's the Edict to clean up the Bone Crusher. And here's the Blood Tithe Harvester. So
yeah, and we wanted to pitch the Liliana earlier. The 2 life might have been worth it if Mike had drawn a little better, but that's looking real good there.
yeah,
It's from the Bone Crusher Giant.
Yeah, I think he's just gonna die next turn in combat, and he agrees. He's gonna pick his cards up, and we're gonna go to game 2.
Yep.
So
I think crisp play there by both players, and
yeah.
Yep. Like we said, Mike just had to choose the aggressive line and couldn't play the long game.
Yeah, I mean, I think they both made the right decision about how to approach their position in the game, and Mike just needed to draw a little bit better, or needed Dillon to draw a little bit worse. That's what it is.
So, what are we liking from these players' sideboards?
Now we'll start with Michael, as he's going to be on the play. He has access to 1 Legion's End, 2 Lifebane Zombie, 2 Rending Volley, a Kolaghan's Command, 1 Damping Sphere, 1 Sky Sovereign Console Flagship, 2 unlicensed hearse, 1 Hidetsugu consumes all, 2 go blank, and 2 extinction event. First thing I want to clear up before we talk about specific cyber cards. How do you feel about Thoughtseize in this specific version of the matchup? I know in varying versions of these Thoughtseize Liliana decks, people have different perceptions about whether they want the discard, whether they don't want the discard post game. Where do you think you land in general with how the black-red decks are shaping up in the format?
I think that most of the games look more like the what Dillon had on his side of the table.
Mhm.
Just these very grindy, draw lots of cards, not even really draw lots of cards, but just have lots of permanents that you're activating and filtering through cards, activating lands. And so I would say that I don't want them in my deck, because that's how I expect most of my games to go. I don't expect them, the ability to choose the aggressive line like Mike did in that game. And we saw there, even when he did choose it, it didn't pan out. The cards in the red black deck were able to turn the corner and be a larger deck. So yeah. I like not having them.
Yeah, I think it's weird because I think that's especially true now that Sheldred's in and is really good at stabilizing our life total and stabilizing the board. However, when you have individual high impact cards like Sheldred, cards like Thoughtseize are more appealing because they're one of the cleanest ways to answer some of these problematic permanents. So I'm firmly in the camp that if you're not past the density of 6 discard spells, I don't want my discard spells in post board games, or I want to have fewer of them. But I could also see that, on the draw, it feels like you need to have it because it's your best thing to be doing on turn 1, just because you need to be able to recover some tempo. But yeah, in general for sideboarding, I would say I like go blank. Hearse is probably okay, especially if your opponent shows you Croxa. You don't know if your opponent has 2 Croxa, but they happen to have 2 Croxa, so it's going to be pretty good.
Yep.
Sky Sovereign, possibly. It's a little expensive and it's vulnerable to K command, which your opponent is likely to have in their deck. But it's possibly a card you're interested in. And past that, I don't know how I feel about Hidetsu consumes all. I think it's probably a little on the weak side.
I'd agree there.
But we also get our extra K command. So just a couple small upgrades. We get to trim our least bad removal spells and however many Thoughtseizes we do and don't like in our matchup. What does Dillon have going on in his sideboard?
So Dillon's got some extra copies of K command, like we brought up. None of the big Sky Sovereign card, which I know that champion of the deck, like Misplaced Ginger, he has it in his deck to be good in the mirror. So I think that we'll see the players bringing it in. But Dillon's got 2 copies of Kalidas that I think he'll just get to go up to 5 or 6 4-drops to be able to play in these longer grindy games that just take over the game on their own. And so I really like where that's at with 2 more Kalidas and 2 more K command to just take over the game and rebuy the cards even once they're answered.
Yeah, I would think in general having more K command, more Kalidas, and more Croxa is probably the combination that you want in this matchup.
Yes, absolutely.
So starting things off with a tap Blood Crypt, tapped Haunted Ridge, going into game 2.
And like we said, Mike on the play gets to make the first action on turn 2 with the Blood Tithe Harvester.
Blood Tithe Harvester, a great 2-drop here. Opponent doesn't really want to answer it. You're going to get your blood token anyway, get some selection. And both players agree, although one of them got to play a Hive of the Eye Tyrant. That's probably a lot more happy about the land sequencing here. I love the lands, but when you don't get to play them on the first 2 turns, it's a little tough. For sure. Also, Michael at 18 because he had to. No, he's not. I'm bad.
Land came into play tapped.
Yeah, I gained 2 life move as the kids call it. So here's a Fatal Push to kill the Blood Harvester, attacking for 3. Yeah, I mean, push doesn't have a lot of targets. You don't like this way. You don't have to worry about setting up Revolt. So I get it.
Yep.
And I might have offered just to trade first, and then if my opponent declined, push. But it's again going to be really context dependent on the specific cards you have in your hand, and also just how aggressive you want to be. It's possible that again, Michael is on a plan where he wants to be aggressive in this matchup, and then aggressively pushing your opponent's creature to send damage in is a reasonable gameplay.
Yeah.
I will say the other thing. How many Graveyard Trespassers does Michael have?
I believe Michael has the full 4. Dillon's the one with
Yeah,
2.
so Dillon only has 2. Another card that is probably the only spot in Dillon's deck where I might want to have more copies of a card to be more prepared for this matchup because it's pretty good.
I do think that the spots that Dillon has, though, like we said that we like the Croxa, and then the other one that I'm noticing here is that he does have the one tenacious underdog that if you find in a match like this, it'll just run away with the game.
I've cast a lot of tenacious underdog, not in this deck, but it's quite powerful card. Looks like players are just going to keep playing lands, and this Bloodtithe Harvester is going to keep getting turned sideways. And it looks like Dillon's deciding whether he wants to K command or take 3. He's going to go with K command at 2 damage and discard. Do you like that over rebuying the Bloodtithe Harvester in the blind?
I don't think so. I think that gives my opponent a lot of choice, and whereas rebuying my Bloodtithe Harvester gives me more choice.
Yeah, the opponent did play a land first.
Okay.
Which some people would wait one way or the other, but it gave you information first. But we see a Fable come down here, creating a Goblin Shaman. The Liliana might be able to line up here to clean up this thing. The one thing about this matchup is anytime I can downtick my Liliana and trade for any kid, I'm pretty happy. So 2/2, doesn't matter that I have other ways to kill it. We just want to trade. And the only other way you're getting value out of Liliana, other than the ultimate in Dreamland, is when you plus and have no cards in your hand. So it seems like a good trade. Get to put our Castle Lockbane in tap this turn. Doesn't cost us too much, and pass the turn back. And now we decide we're doing on our rummage. So this looks like we drew a Fatal Push return, and it looks like Michael has another has a Kolaghan's command of his own that he can potentially use to answer this Liliana. I think I would discard the Fatal Push. And then he agrees, and he wants to keep his land, I believe. He drew a Shatter Skull Smashing.
Okay.
That I believe he's going to cast. I know he's gonna play it as a land and pay 3 life. He wants all 5 of his mana this turn, which I think means we're going to be rebuying this Bloodtithe Harvester with the Kolaghan's command.
I think so.
Shock the Liliana, pick up my Bloodtithe, cast my Bloodtithe, make another blood. The upside to this play over discarding a random card is getting to the second blood makes the activated ability of the Harvester much more appealing in these matchups.
Yes.
Especially with this, Kiki flipping over soon. We could see even things like a Shieldred getting answered with the activation.
Shieldred, or even without Kiki flipping, the Kalitas that we brought up that Dillon has in his sideboard.
Yeah, the 2 copies. Although it looks like here we're going to get another nice Liliana minus trade.
And it also looks like Dillon found that tenacious underdog. So see if he can leverage that into.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the helper card in his hand is an MDFC or if those are spells. If one of those is a land, it's going to be really good for him. He's going to get to spend all of his mana this turn, kill the Bloodtithe Harvester, get a creature into play, and start to empty his hands so we can start taking advantage of the plus.
I agree. I don't see a lot of movement though, so that makes me think that they're both spells, like a Graveyard Trespasser and a Fable.
And that's where it definitely gets trickier here. I don't know. I don't think you want your opponent to untap with the Bloodtithe Harvester if you're going to play a creature. I don't think you want to play Liliana in plus. So the question is, do we rummage first? Is there a reason to rummage first? And if we're rummaging, what are we discarding? I could see just discarding the underdog because it's kind of like a free card because you get to blitz it back out of your graveyard.
Seems like Dillon agrees.
Didn't find the land, but does still get to play as Liliana. Edict the Bloodtithe Harvester.
Like you said, just want to be trading my down tick with a card.
And it looks like we were both wrong. It is in fact just a land anyway. That was the line that we decided to go with. Like, it does draw you an extra card.
True.
Because theoretically you're going to cast this tenacious underdog out of your graveyard.
He also could have found the land off the filter.
That's true.
And still could have 2 checklist cards in his hand.
He did draw Dreadbore though. So.
Oh, you're right. We did see that. And only has 1 checklist card. So
yep.
Never mind.
All good. Reflection flips over here. See a Kalitas in hand, I believe, for Michael Ingram. Liliana is sometimes a little mediocre in these matchups, but sometimes it's quite brutal. And when your opponent has multiples and you have none, and you have a board like this where you don't have multiple creatures in play, it's going to be a little tough. But we do have a Graveyard Trespasser coming in. It's going to exile the tenacious underdog.
Yep.
Draining for 1, putting Michael to 18 and Dillon to 16. And it's daytime. And,
for those at home that obviously we have no camera on us, but Chase looked out the window where it is very clearly dark.
I disagree. But yeah, the scary thing here is we're going to rummage a blood. Well, we did rummage a blood, and then we're going to play a den tapped. So the scary thing here is I don't think you can let your opponent untap with both your creatures. I don't think you want to dreadbore one of these creatures. And I don't think you want to overwrite your Liliana by playing another Liliana. Fortunately enough, it looks like Dillon has drawn a bunker all of these problems for him at the same time.
Yep.
Killing the reflection, making a blocker for the Graveyard Trespasser, allowing him to use the hidden mode on Liliana to not activate, potentially.
Yep.
But apparently we're both wrong, and he is just going to dreadbore the creature that can die to the Bone Crusher, replay Liliana and Edict. It seems like I would have stomped there. I'm trying to think of a reason to not do that. Because every Planeswalker that you could stomp from a minus, you can still just kill with a dreadbore.
We're just down a Liliana here.
Well, I mean, we might have put the Liliana and Edict anyway, but we're just down a dreadbore. Like we
True.
We gained a. I guess the shock kills the den.
We're down a dreadbore or a Liliana activation.
Sure, we get to kill the den this way. Is I guess the upside.
Yeah, but I really liked just stomping and then playing the Bone Crusher Giant and trying to block the Graveyard Trespasser. And just leaving the extra copy of Liliana in our hands to play at a later time.
Yeah, and if our opponent wants to fire up Den of the Bugbear to kill our Liliana, that's all of their mana. I mean, presumably they might do it anyway because they don't have a lot of cards, but it looks like we're seeing another Fable come down, get the mana hold up to stomp this Den, and Michael takes a draw. It looks like he has a Blightstep pathway and a Dreadbore in hand. Play the Blightstep, Dreadbore the Gobble token, activate his Den. And this is going to work out perfectly for Dillon because the land went into play, so now we can't activate our blood token to rummage that land away. Yeah, only going to take 1 in combat here.
And Stomp gets to kill the Den of the Bugbear. Looks like we drew a Fatal Push, thinking about what to pitch with our second chapter of Fable of the Mirrorbreaker.
Yeah, I would imagine we're going to pitch both of these cards. Pushing, I don't want to push the Goblin token. I don't think push has good value longer in the game, so I think you just want to get 2 fresh looks. You're just trying to find a Croxa.
It looks like Dillon agrees, but land Fatal Push off the top.
I mean, here it ends up being not that bad because you'll still get to play your land. You know, you can push the Goblin token and activate Castle. You know, you can just play your Bone Crusher Giant and hold up push. I don't even know if you actually want to play the Swamp yet or not. One of the complicated things in this matchup is you have so many ways to utilize cards in your hand, whether it's protecting other cards from Liliana activations, you know, rummaging with the blood tokens, rummaging with, you know, your fables, that like you have to think a lot about whether you want to play your lands or not in a lot of spots. Looks like we're going to activate Castle Lochthwain, taking 2. Believe that Dillon is down to 13, but it might be 12 because I believe this Goblin token might have hit him once already on the first activation. I might have missed that.
Got it.
So it's now nighttime. Dillon at 10. Okay, so I missed a full set of damage there. So we're going to rummage our land away using our last blood token. We're getting news from our other table that John Goss has defeated Kyle Gibson 2-0, only moving on to the finals. So the winner of this match will be facing John for the invite. Yeah. Flexion flips over. Play a Blood Crypt tapped. Cast Bone Crusher. Another Bone Crusher and Field Push in hand here for Dillon Reed. It's looking like a pretty favorable spot.
Absolutely.
And now it's not. That's a Sky Sovereign.
That's a pretty good draw. Yep.
Yeah, Sky Sovereign coming down to kill the reflection. Can't crew it yet, but it does stabilize the board. Especially because Michael's still at a healthy 18 and not likely to be getting killed anytime soon.
And for the purpose of discussion, we brought up earlier the theory behind leaving in Thoughtseize in this matchup, and this is exactly why we don't want to leave it in. Mike's drawing off the top. Sky Sovereign, wonderful draw. Thoughtseize, maybe not so much at that point.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it can line up taking an interactive spell, but the problem is a lot of times you need to draw another threat or another interactive spell, and you draw Thoughtseize, and it clumps up your draw steps here. There's a little bit more merit in this version than some others because you have all these ravaging effects.
True.
So you can select them away later.
Yeah.
But I do think if I was going to want to do it, it would be because I have a specific board plan, or if I have spicy additional discard technology in my black-red deck, which I don't think anyone is quite ready to play. I think you're supposed to attack. This is because I think you're just hoping that your opponent doesn't find a creature to crew the Sky Sovereign. Because if they do, you already don't have an answer to it. You've fatal push another Bone Crusher. So I think you are supposed to animate, attack for 7, stomp. That's 9, and then you can animate, attack again, putting your opponent to 2. And then if they remove the Bone Crusher with a spell, it's lethal. And you'll have a second Bone Crusher you can play the turn after. I also don't think like waiting and drawing cards like Castle Lockthwain really is what you want to do here. Looks like Dillon's at least somewhere with that, but it's also possible you want to just play the Bone Crusher this turn. You wait, even if your opponent draws a creature,
right?
They kill one of the Bone Crushers, you still have another Bone Crusher in play.
Yep.
And that presents lethal if the Goblin doesn't block. So in combination with the Fatal Push, would be lethal.
Right.
But
and Sky Sovereign only triggers on attacks, correct?
only on ETB and attack, yeah.
Yes.
Although you still have to find a creature to crew this with.
Right.
Hopefully we just draw a Shieldred right off the top. I
Mhm.
believe that was a Blight Step Pathway, which is not what we're looking for. Do you have a Croxa?
Kroxa.
That's
Okay.
good. That will crew the Sky
Yep.
Sovereign. It's also going to get rebought and block and cause a great deal of consternation and problems. Yeah, that was a good one. So now I think we're just gonna have to discard the Bone Crusher to the first one, and then when he escapes it, you're gonna have to Fatal Push the Croxa so that you still have attacks with. Oh my, yeah, that's brutal.
Yeah. Just decides to pack it in.
Yeah,
it looks like.
I think it's lethal that turn actually.
Got it.
If well, he has to discard both his spells where it's lethal because he's at 10.
Okay.
Because then the trigger will resolve. He'll take 3, and then the Goblin token plus the crewed Sky Sovereign is attack lethal.
Yep.
And the only other way to stop that is to stomp the Goblin token, and then you're also going to take 3.
Yep.
And you're stomping a Goblin token.
Yep.
Yeah. So Michael Ingram able to get there with his aggressive angle, and we saw Sky Sovereign come in and be quite good there. Yeah. It seemed like it was just going to be a race to the impactful cards, and Michael drew 2 of them, like 2 of the more impactful cards in the whole deck. Croxa.
Yeah. As much as Dillon might have had more 4-drops in his deck, they were not in his hands.
Weren't in his hand. So.
No. This does mean we're going to a game 3 though. So
yeah, just the thing Cameron was reading when I told me we were going to have the black-red mirror on camera. Three nice long games for the folks at home. I am joking, of course. I actually really enjoy these. They're really interesting to me because there's a lot of decision points for people to gain small advantages. So, unlike my normal games, which involve casting Unmasked, targeting myself.
Oh man. So I think just talking earlier, we would have played some sort of linear deck today.
Yes.
How do you think you would have done with your deck of choice?
I think very poorly into a field of 11 black-red decks.
Yep.
Because I think I would have chose a linear deck that doesn't have a great game plan against mid-range decks. And I think I would have picked one that is vulnerable to extinction event. And that's the super the black-red's choosing to play right now, which I can't say they're wrong. It lines up really well against decks the format they need to line up against. And I mean, it's a good deck. Like the cards are good. Like, Want to play Liliana. I also, there's a small chance I might have played mono black aggro.
Okay.
I know that we had a black midrange, mono black midrange player today, with a nice list. But so before DMU, I've been playing a reasonable amount of mono black aggro myself. I've been a fan of it, even though other people are not sold on it. The people online are playing lists that are different than mine. I get upset because I want to play Mukotai Soul Ripper because it's really good, and none of them are playing it. And yeah, but we're taking a mulligan to 6 here for Dillon Reed. Not what you want to see in this matchup.
No. Mike,
especially on the play. On the draw, it's like sometimes okay because you're kind of up half a card anyway. But Mike looks pretty happy. He's got a keepable hand. He's got a Liliana. He's got some K command.
Yep.
Opponent's gonna have 6 cards. What are they rolling for?
I have no idea. There were some dice rolled.
I hope it wasn't to affect the outcome of the result of the match.
I think that they added them. That's it. That's all they did. Do you think they got 11 when they added 3 plus 8?
Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway,
it's not looking like a lot of lands. Oh,
Tenacious Underdog to the bottom. Not the type of card I would like to put on the bottom in this matchup. So either his hand is really good or he really needs all the lands. Ooh, Thoughtseize in. Thoughtseize in for Dillon Reed. He's going to Thoughtseize.
Definitely could help after taking him all again.
It is one of the cards that's impactful when you're down cards because it lets you trade specifically and then sequence around the remaining cards. For example, seeing 2 Fatal Push here, you can take something else and then choose to play around Fatal Push for the entirety of the game.
Yep.
I imagine we're going to see a Culligan's Command or the Liliana selected. I can't imagine taking Graveyard Trespass or leaving my opponent with a K command. And I cannot imagine taking a Fatal Push here.
Yeah. Especially when you've got a Liliana in your hand.
Yeah. Looks like Dillon agrees he's going to take a K command. Which I think is probably better. You get the sequence around the Liliana. Make sure the Edict doesn't line up particularly well. Getting confirmation the dice was just for meme value as Den of the Bug branches Battlefield.
So I'm going to change my answer. I think they subtracted them. Do you think they got 5?
Also depends.
Okay. They could have gotten -5.
Yes. Alternatively, people can make mistakes when performing basic arithmetic.
What?
It looks like Dillon's stuck on 2 lands here. Going to stop this Fable token.
Trading that with whatever you can at that
The problem here is now Michael knew this turn that his Liliana was going to trade us for a spell, and he knows for sure it's going to happen next turn. And Den of the Bugger, not the land you want to draw for lane 3. Pass back. I have a feeling these 2 Fatal Pushes are going to go to the graveyard in exchange for 2 new cards.
There's the draw. There's the counter.
Peek. Just make sure. Okay. I'm going to discard the land.
Push.
Okay. Confident he's going to be able to find one. Thinks the first Fatal Push is good enough.
I'm going to draw 2 more cards.
Don't have to.
There we go.
I guess we do.
I think once you discard the cards, you do have to draw the cards.
Yeah. This is not diminishing returns. Don't have an option about how many cards you want to draw at that point. Let's get your 2 lands. Then I'll play a Den tapped. I think I would play Liliana and plus here and discard my remaining Fatal Push.
I like it.
There's not an instant speed card that answers the Liliana. Like if you're going to stomp here, like that's not even that good for them. They have to untap and dreadboard Liliana. Like, gonna discard a card that's not Fatal Push, but Trespasser.
Also showing that to your opponent, but maybe also maybe not. I'm not sure.
Trade 1 Graveyard Trespasser for 1 Fatal Push.
It usually trades a little bit better than that after you cast it.
Usually, I would imagine that I would have liked a discard Fatal Push, although he could be on the Defend Liliana plan.
True.
Yep. So that bone crusher is going to stop the Liliana. Not a trade I would like to make. That looks like a Fable of the Mirror Breaker.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to pay off to hold this Fatal Push because now we're going to get to clean up the Goblin token with it.
Yeah.
I think you have to hold this Haunted Ridge so that you don't discard your Liliana because you're going to need it to edict the reflection from your opponent.
Yep.
Which is not a desirable place to be in a matchup with so many high impact 4-drops.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Ingram's going to take a draw. He's going to flip his Fable. And just puzzle out the rest of his turn. I'll start by plussing Liliana. I agree. He's going to discard one of his lands, get the Haunted Ridge from Dillon Reed. Play Swamp for turn. Fatal Push the token. And it's in fact, I still had all these moments. Second Graveyard Trespasser.
Oh.
Gonna come into play, I believe exiling the Haunted Ridge from Dillon's graveyard. And it is in fact daytime and we're gonna pass it back. So draw, trigger. I don't think Liliana is good enough. I think you need 2. You can't even kill the. I think you have to draw Strangle Bone Crusher down at number 3. So you can stomp the reflection, strangle the Liliana, and then hope that afterwards you can stabilize against the Graveyard Trespasser. I think you have just to discard both of your cards. Does Dillon have a Strangle in his deck?
He does.
Okay, so it's about whether he left the Strangle in or not.
Yep.
I would imagine you should, because
It's just an answer.
it's just better than Fatal Push most of the time.
Yep.
But I think he's trying to figure that out, figure out if there's a different line that works. I don't think you can play Liliana and Edict, and that's sufficient. He's going to discard 1. Looks like that's a Fable or a Graveyard Trespasser. Draws a Chandra, Torch of Defiance. Only to cast it. He's going to go with the Liliana Edict line. That reflection's going to go to the graveyard. The problem with all these lines is that the 2 down of the Bugbears and 5 lands you're staring down means that your life total is about to start depleting, and the Liliana is going to prevent you from stockpiling resources. So you drew this nice Chandra this turn, but I think it's going to be in the graveyard in a moment.
Mm-hmm. There it goes.
There it goes. We're going to go to combat here. We're going to attack the Liliana because I don't think there's a reason not to. Remove the Chandra.
Mm-hmm.
Pass to our opponent. And this Fable is already answered by the Liliana on the board, although it potentially could protect a Bone Crusher this turn to allow some blocking to happen. It won't because the Bloodhound Harvester, but
Right.
that could have been the theory for the line crafting about why we cast our spells the way we did.
Mm-hmm.
So here comes a Bone Crusher. Pass the turn back.
And Mike just gets to take more actions in each of his turns. And
Yeah, just
we watched that over the last few
as
turns.
the game stalled out, ended up with 2 more lands in play and and more permanents. And interestingly, leads on the Edict. I don't think that's what you wanted to do, unless he just has another removal spell. He just has another Liliana.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess it didn't matter in the end. This way, you get to keep your Bloodtide Harvester, attack for 6, draining with the Graveyard Trespasser to gain a life, deal another damage. That's on top of the deck for Dillon hand. Bone Crusher Giant.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Take a draw step here for Michael Ingram. That looked like a Shatter Skull smashing, and that's probably going to be the game. Oh, it's a Sky Sovereign. Oof. Killing the blocker, pushing for lethal. That's going to be the game.
It looked like Dillon wanted to concede before he let his friend cast that card. Like, no, you do not get to cast Sky Sovereign against me in this game 3 of the semifinals of an RCQ. I am conceding. We are done.
Good day, sir. Yeah. So Michael Ingram going to move on to the finals against John Goss. I think we're going to take a quick break while they get set up for the finals table, and then Cameron and I will be back to give you some coverage of that. So stay tuned, and we'll be back momentarily.